So this is coming from the horse's mouth. This is from a former KGB agent during the communist regime of the USSR. And you're going to hear the reality of what's going on in America. And don't say it ain't happening, because it's happening. It's unfolding right in front of our eyes. The same manifesto, the planks of this insanity. And we're now begging for more of this manifesto. See, this is a part of the communist regime mentalities. I'm just beside myself with all of the gun shootings, and it has too much of a pattern to be abstract. Okay, it's fitting right in with the manifesto. It's going to get escalated, and it's going to continue on until we do exactly what this man says at the end of the video. I am going to now shut up.
When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in four basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black, you still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid of society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of the United States society.
And yet these people who've been programmed and, as you say, in place, and who are favorable to an opening with the Soviet concept, these are the very people who would be marked for extermination in this country?
Most of them, yes. Simply because the psychological shock when they will see in future what the beautiful society of equality and social justice means in practice, obviously they will revolt. They will be very unhappy, frustrated people, and the Marxist-Leninist regime does not tolerate these people. They will join the links of dissenters, dissidents. Unlike in present United States, there will be no place for dissent in future Marxist-Leninist America. Here you can get popular like Daniel Ellsberg and filthy rich like Jane Fonda for being dissident, for criticizing your Pentagon. In future, these people will be simply squashed like cockroaches. Nobody is going to pay them nothing for their beautiful, noble ideas of equality. This they don't understand, and it will be a greatest shock for them, of course. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years, actually it's overfulfilled, because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before,
lack of moral standards.
To true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him.
That's the far left.
Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand.
That's right.
But not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. So basically, America is stuck with demoralization, and unless, even if you start right now, here, this minute, you start educating new generation of Americans, it will still take you 15 to 20 years to turn the tide of ideological perception.
We got a lot of work ahead of ourselves.
Back to normalcy and patriotism. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation, what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis.
It's moving pretty quick.
It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis.
Schmucks. You know what he's talking about. Schmucks. Who uses the word schmucks?
To promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. He will go to Moscow to kiss the bottoms of new generation of Soviet assassins, never mind. He will create false illusions that the situation is under control. Situation is not under control. Situation is disgustingly out of control. Most of the American politicians, media, and educational system trains another generation of people who think they are living at a peacetime. False. The United States is in a state of war, undeclared total war against the basic principles and the foundations of this system.
Yeah, you can see it right now. Right now, what we're experiencing is exactly what this man's talking about. And right now, irrelevant to who is sitting in first seat or not, it's unfolding, ladies and gentlemen. When we have what we call a far left and a far right, it's neither the left or the right. Those two groups that we chimed in on for many years are now this ideology. Remember, the left wing and the right wing is still connected to the bird, that singular bird. Let's finish up.
And the initiator of this war is not Comrade Andropov, of course. It's the system. However ridiculous it may sound, the world communist system or the world communist conspiracy, whether I scare some people or not, I don't give a hoot. If you are not scared by now, nothing can scare you. But you don't have to be paranoid about it. What actually happens now, that unlike myself, you have literally several years to live on unless the United States wake up. The time bomb is ticking. With every second, the disaster is coming closer and closer. Unlike myself, you will have nowhere to defect to. Unless you want to live in Antarctica with penguins. This is it. This is the last country of freedom and possibility.
Okay.
You heard what he said. We're the last bastage. We better not be the last bastard, but we are the last bastage of freedom. Yeah. Before he finishes up, I'm just going to put a little short comment. If we fall, if we go bye-bye, the world is going to change drastically, just like it changed drastically because of America being birthed. Many reasons why America was birthed. We've been hijacked by the very people that he's talking about. Back in 1958 or 59, one of the Russian representatives took his, I think it was at the UN, he took his shoe off at the podium. I can't recall his name right offhand, but he took his shoe off and banged it on the podium and said that we will welcome and embrace communism while we're beating our chests saying that we'll never let that happen in our country. So far, we've been saying, and we're stuck on this ignorance, that there's a saying in America that can't happen here. Unfortunately, it hasn't woke enough people up that it is happening here, and it can happen here. It's just like the fact that if I would have told you the day before 9/11 happened, that some crazy people, doesn't matter where they're from or what their ideology is, some crazy people are going to take airplanes and fly them into buildings in the Pentagon and people wouldn't believe that. They would say that never could happen in America. And then right after 9/11 happened, and the fervor that came with why and who, if I would have said there's going to be a man, going to be a president in our country with the name Barack Hussein Obama, you would also told me I was crazy, and no one would ever be the president with that kind of name right after 9/11. So, yes, it can happen. It is happening. And I can tell you right now that our last first seat was a Manchurian candidate. Go look at the guy. Just go look at the guy's face. Find as many pictures as you can. I could be wrong, but it's sure strange that this man has a scar like all the way around his face. Like somebody put a fucking sewn face mask on this guy. I'm dead serious. I have paid attention to that ever since he became a public eye. Don't listen to me. Just go look at seriously, go look at pictures of that Barack Obama. Him and his wife are the most mysterious people so far. It's been in Washington. It's amazing. And we still don't have answers for that particular situation that we just went through that drastically changed our country.
Okay, so what do we do? What is your recommendation to the American people?
Well, the immediate thing that comes to my mind is, of course, there must be a very strong national effort to educate people in the spirit of real patriotism, number one. Number two, to explain them the real danger of socialist, communist, whatever, welfare state, big brother government.
You see what he said? That's exactly what's happening here. And I'm not even going to say, look at the people, the names of who's pushing this, who's going to benefit financially from this, who's writing the laws that are being passed in our country that are pushing these draconian laws, these Communist Manifesto laws. Go look at their names, and you'll be surprised who they really are. And you'll be surprised they have dual citizenship. You'll be surprised that they're also trying to advocate that they have more loyalty to this country than the country that they have dual citizenship to. You can't have dual citizenship. I'm sorry. You're for the country you live in, or you're for the country that you are absent from, but a citizen to. So then that makes you what? What does that make you in this country then? That makes you, the person that's here, a fucking terrorist.
If people will fail to grasp the impending danger of that development, nothing ever can help United States. You may kiss goodbye to your freedom, including freedoms to homosexuals, to
pay attention.
Inmate. All this freedom will vanish, evaporate in 5 seconds, including your precious lives. The second thing, the moment at least part of the United States population is convinced that the danger is real, they have to force their government. And I'm not talking about sending letters, signing petitions,
pay attention,
and all this beautiful, noble activity. I'm talking about forcing United States government to stop aiding communism.
Yeah. So, what we have is a problem. Voting, beating the streets isn't going to change anything, ladies and gentlemen. So you know what he's saying, and I'm not even going to say it. It's because I don't have to say it. It's blatantly obvious what he was saying, and this man just told you how you're going to fix it, how we are going to fix it. The tree is thirsty, ladies and gentlemen. It's starting to starve to death from the lack of water, of freedom, of oppression. Call me crazy, because I know you will. Mock the man who speaks the truth. Yeah, that's okay. When the tide turns, you're going to wish that you've listened to all of us that have been trying to warn you of the dangers of what's coming. And it will be ugly. Unfortunately, a lot of our people in the military will listen to orders in the beginning, and then they will fall, because what happens is, just like he said, everybody's going to help it once it gets up and running. If you just have anybody, they'll be afraid to say anything, and we're already afraid to say anything. Get out there. I recommend you fucking get a big mouth going. You need to chime in as hard as you can to stop this insanity that's coming, that's manifesting, that is actually unfolding in front of our eyes, ladies and gentlemen. And here's the thing, and before I end this, because this is about probably the longest one I've done so far. Once they get rid of our weapons, I promise you this, once they get rid of our weapons, all hell is going to break out. Not only all hell is going to break out, crime is going to skyrocket 30 to 50% instantly, like almost overnight. And that's also going to help create more big brother government and more big jack-booted thugs out on the streets. Might even put military out on the streets. That's coming too. Since Barack Obama got rid of the law to not propagandize our own country, now that they have been doing it and it's legalized, don't worry, they're going to pass all the laws to legally do what they're doing and what they're going to do. I rest assure you this. And Confucius said this, the more laws a nation has, the more corrupt the nation is. Have a good Friday. Enjoy yourselves. And do everything inappropriately should do to have fun. And when you have to ask for permission, you are a slave.